Guys, I was so hooked. Oh my god, I hate myself. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are doing a very special video that I am super excited for, which is a reading wrap up for the month of July. I know that seems pretty basic, but on my other channel I really couldn't do any of these. I'm really excited to do this type of video for the first time, and also because of the fact that July actually turned out to be a really good reading month for me in terms of volume of books. Like, I feel like in the past couple of months I've just been in a bad reading slump. This month I just obliterated it. I kept reading book after book. I also finished my Goodreads reading goal for the year within this month. And I'm very, very excited to talk about the different books that I did end up reading. In the month of July, I ended up reading 14 books. I'm currently almost finished with Hook, Line, and Sinker actually. Today's only July 30th and then tomorrow's July 31st. So I'm pretty sure that in total, I'm going to end up finishing 15 books within the month of July. So the first book that I'm going to go ahead and talk about is Red by Cambria Hebert. This is the 5th book in the House of Misfits series. I always read Cambria's books. Every time that she comes up with a book, I will pick it up right away every time that she releases it. This series is basically a fairy tale retelling, so every single book has a different couple that is based on a different fairy tale. It's more of like a modern day version fairy tale retelling. This book is an MM romance. It is about Daesham and Bo is a hacker. He works for the FBI, and Daesham is actually, he was part of a gang. The reason that they end up coming and crossing paths is because one of the brothers who was a star in another book, this is his biological brother, Daesham is, he and Bo end up rooming together. Basically, it was based on Little Red Riding Hood. I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars. It wasn't my cup of tea, to be honest. It was very insta-love, and honestly, I didn't really understand what the two characters saw in each other. They didn't have any like quiet moments together, and I think those are the moments that build up a relationship, and that's the reason why I love couples so much, is because of those sweet little organic moments where it's not like a huge declaration of love, it's not spectacular, but those are the organic moments that build a relationship, and I feel like there was just none of that. I really don't like insta love that much, and so this book just like didn't do it for me. I still love Cambria Hebert. Her books are hit or miss for me, but I always know that they're gonna have a similar formula and a similar happy ending, so like I know it's not gonna be amazing and like spectacular, but I still want to read her books. If you have one author like that, like, you know what I mean. The next book I read, I was so excited for this book. I've been waiting for this book for so long. It's called Love Theoretically by Hazelwood. If you guys follow me on TikTok, you know that I am a huge Hazelwood fan. I love anything she writes. I've read all of her books plus her novellas. Basically, if you don't know Hazelwood, her branch of writing is a very specific type of genre, which is ladies in STEM in a romance setting. It's just so unique to anything that I've ever read before. I've never had a book enthrall me in not only the romance, but also the career paths and the work environments that they are in. And this book in particular was just so sweet. So it's about Elsie and Jack. Elsie is a physicist, an adjunct professor, and she doesn't make a lot of money. She's actually really poor. And she has type 1 diabetes, and so if you know anything about the American health system, it is broken and medicine is very expensive. What she does is she basically works online as a date for hire, not like an escort, but like basically if men don't want to go to events by themselves, or if they need you to be a fake girlfriend for the night, they can hire Elsie. So Elsie does this in her spare time. She creates an entire fake identity. She meets up with the guys. They tell her exactly how to pretend to act. One of the clients that she has ends up being a really good friend of hers, and his brother is this guy, Jack Smith. She's like, he won't leave me alone. He keeps asking me all these questions. He looks like he doesn't believe her, which he shouldn't because she's lying. But it turns out that he has a soft spot for her. So she's trying to get a job at his workplace where he's one of the people who's voting on if she should get the job, and she kind of panics because he knows that she's a liar. Because of the reason that his brother hired her, she doesn't want to break his trust and divulge why exactly he had hired her as a fake girlfriend. She doesn't want to break his trust. So it's about the two of them and their tension. And I just think that this book in particular It was really, really sweet. I mean, like, if you are a mirror ball girly, it's just folklore coded. The whole premise is that Elsie is just very good at projecting what other people want to see, and the reason that Jack makes her so nervous is because she can't tell what he wants and she doesn't know what to do with that. He's the first person to call her out and be like, why do you keep doing that? Like, I don't want what you think I want you. I just think this book was so sweet. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was my least favorite of the 3 STEMinist books, but it was still fantastic. I thought it was such a good read. I always love learning a little bit more about science and the STEM workforce through Hazelwood's writing. It feels very authentic. The relationship was just so sweet. I think that Jack is like one of the best book boyfriends I've ever read. He was caring and kind and sweet and patient and just funny. Like, he was just such a good book boyfriend. I really do have to recommend this book. It's fantastic. The next book I read was Law of Attraction by Raeesah and Ambarker. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. This book is basically a hockey romance between Beckham and Nix. This book was interesting because basically the 2 characters had already been in a relationship that turned sour, and so now they are at each other's throats. Beckham is the captain of the hockey team, and their old coach had to step down because of family issues, and their new coach has no idea what they're doing. They end up having to turn to Nix for help because she actually knows the players and knows the boys, and so the 2 of them are at each other's throats. It ended up being a very odd read for me. I gave it 3 stars because this is a very specific reason, but for some reason noticed, because I was reading this on my phone, that the author loved using the phrase "the ladder" constantly. So I searched it, because you can search words in iBooks, and it came up 44 times. That is an insane amount of times to use the phrase "the ladder." I noticed it so much that it bothered the hell out of me when I was reading it. I like couldn't focus on anything else. It was crazy. The main reason that I didn't really like this, it was a very emotional read. Please look up the trigger warnings before you go ahead and read this. It's very emotional, turbulent. I felt like I didn't like how they constantly referred to their old relationship. It wasn't for me. Just the way it was written back and forth was not for me. The book itself was okay. If you are interested in reading a hockey romance, go for it, but this book wasn't my particular favorite. The next 3 books that I read are from the Fake Boyfriend series by Finley. This whole series is romance. It's about fake boyfriends, the whole thing. I love fake dating personally. That is one of my favorite tropes, so if that's something you're interested in, check out this series. So the first book that I read is called Fake Out. It's between Maddox and Damon. Maddox, he's from this like very small hometown, and his girlfriend was obsessed with him, and so for some reason he just says to her, "I'm gay, so that's why we can't be together." Flees to New York. So she's getting married and she invites him to the wedding, which is in his hometown. Basically his whole hometown thinks he's gay because it just spiraled out of control, but he's not. He's straight. He is basically complaining to his friend like, "Oh my god, I have to go to this wedding, I have to go home." Even his parents think he's gay because it's spiraled so badly, and he just never corrected anyone because he hates his hometown. He hasn't been back since. So his friend sets him up with Damon, who is her brother, and Damon is actually gay, and so they go to his hometown and they have to pretend to be boyfriends. They stay with his parents, they pretend to be a couple there. The 2 of them feel this attraction towards each other, and it turns out that Maddox is like, "Oh my god, am I gay? Like, I actually am very attracted to you." Damon's a little more hesitant because he doesn't want to be an experiment to Maddox because he's actually out and gay. The one thing I will say about this series is that the woman does not know how to do a slow burn, which is my cup of tea. If you are into like insta connection, insta lust, this is a good series for you, but I particularly like the burn a little bit more than the relationship. I just wish it slowed down a little bit because every single couple that I read about, they all got into a sexual relationship very quickly. It was still a good book for me. I rated it 3 stars. It was very entertaining. It was a good quick read, so go check it out. The second book that I read in this series was Trick Play. Matt is a very famous football player. Maddox's boyfriend Damon is managing him. He was actually caught in a club, so like he was outed. He wasn't really allowed to tell his story organically. What happens is that they want to control the narrative by having him with a very well-liked, very PR-friendly boyfriend to make it seem like he's a little less seedy and a little more family-friendly, because he's up for a new contract in the NFL and he can't do that if everyone thinks that he's like this seedy football player. So they end up matching him up with Noah, who is a very famous Nepo baby. His parents are in politics and they're very controlling of him, but he's very much not interested in working. He's very much rich playboy, which is the very opposite of Matt. They end up going on a cruise together, pretending to be in this relationship, but they are attracted to each other. I felt that this story was actually very sweet. I think that they really opened up to each other, which is why I think I liked it more than book number 1, because I felt like this had more of an emotional connection. I ended up rating it 4 stars. I thought it was pretty enjoyable. Okay, now don't ask me why I did this, but I basically skipped book 3 in the Fake Boyfriend series and went straight to book 4 because the couple in book 4 was mentioned in book 2. Something about the premise of this couple I could not stop thinking about, so I just had to skip to book 4. This is the first book in the series that actually isn't a fake boyfriend romance. It's in the series, but like the trope is not fake dating. The author even wrote in her book like this book was not supposed to exist, and so when so many people wanted these two people to be together, she just didn't think that a fake dating thing would fit in their relationship, so she just wrote the couple as is. So this is actually a best friends to lovers romance. It's MM. The two guys are named Miller and Talon. So Miller and Talon actually played football together in college. They were really good friends and they ended up, how do I say this appropriately? They ended up having a very specific requirement for after football activities that they would participate in together with a third person. They never got romantically involved with each other, but so both of them ended up going to the NFL. Miller is on a team and Talon actually makes the decision to move to the team solely because Miller is on the team, because he missed him so much. Miller still has this giant crush on him. Miller gets injured. Talon takes it upon himself to be like his PT, like his workout buddy. And so it ends up being like very cute friends to lovers. Very entertaining, very quick. All of these books are very quick. I ended up rating this 4 stars. Personally, I just think it was very cute. I'm really excited to continue with the series. The next book that I read was Powerless by Elsie Silver. This is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Spring series. I had read the other 2 books in June, so I started this one like immediately after on my phone. I don't know why, but it took me a very long time to get into this book. I think that it was just a little random because the other 2 books were about small town guy meets like city girl. Like it was just like a very similar formula. And then this one was childhood best friends to lovers between a hockey player and a ballerina. So it was like Avril Lavigne coded. Jasper Gervais is one of the brothers. He was best friends with one of the brothers in the family and he just didn't have good parents. And so they basically like unofficially adopted him. He was around them constantly and Sloane is their cousin, but she's been in love with him like her entire childhood. Flash forward to the future, she's getting married as a business arrangement for her father. She ends up freaking out on her wedding day and running away with Jasper. The 2 of them end up running away and at the same time, one of the brothers, Beau, who's in the military, goes missing. They end up spending more time together because they're just sad and, you know, being with the whole family, and they end up falling in love. It was okay. I gave it 3 stars. I think after reading Heartless, which was my favorite in the series, which is book number 2 between Willa and Cade, I was just kind of disappointed. The next book I read was Sweet Dandelion by Micalea Smeltzer. Definitely look up the trigger warnings. So basically what it's about is Danny, or her full name is Dandelion. Danny, or Dandelion, is a survivor of a school shooting that unfortunately killed her mother. She is left in the care of her 25-year-old brother. She has to move to a whole new town, start a whole new school, and due to circumstances, they pair her up with the guidance counselor. The guidance counselor is Lakeland Taylor. He actually coincidentally lives in the same building as her. They actually completely bond over books. That is the way that they communicate. Like he keeps handing her books and she ends up getting into books because of him. I personally like that factor because I am a book lover. I don't know why. why, but whenever the main character loves books, I just love it more. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about student-teacher romances. I tend to like them. I ended up giving this book 3 stars just because, of course, they're going back and forth because this is an illegal relationship. I felt that the character growth of Danny, because obviously she has to grow, she's only 18, I feel that the character growth of Danny was not done in a way that was good enough to develop her character to be with Lakeland in the future. I don't think she particularly found a coping mechanism that was good on her own. I felt that she used other people as crutches for her coping mechanism, which was Lakeland's whole point as to why he felt weird about being with her, because he was like, I feel that you are latching onto me because I'm helping you deal with your trauma. I don't think she ever really got away from that. I think she just kind of chose different people. The one thing I did like about this book is that her relationship with her brother is so sweet and wholesome. Like, he was really trying so hard to be there for her. I did end up liking the ending of this book. I think that the writing was pretty good. It just, again, what fell flat for me wasn't the romance, it was just the character development of Danny. The next book that I read was actually the novella of Sweet Dandelion called Sweet Christmas. This one was a flash forward of Lakeland and Danny in the future and their first Christmas. I gave it 4 stars. I always really like novellas because it just feels like a love letter to the readers who really enjoyed the couple. It was very wholesome, like it wrapped up a lot of things that I had questions about. I loved seeing them in that domestic setting because Sweet Dandelion definitely reminded me of I Can See You by Taylor Swift. It was like very illicit, like in the hallways, in dark corners. Finally, they were out in the open. They were just enjoying Christmas together. They were being an ordinary couple, and I really liked that. On top of that, it was in Lakeland's perspective, which is something that wasn't in Sweet Dandelion, which drove me crazy. I wished we could have seen his perspective that whole time. And so Sweet Christmas was in his point of view, and I just loved it. He was so in love with Danny, and like you could finally really see it in his thought process. I loved it. So 4 stars for that one. The next book I read in July was King of Wrath by Anna Huang. If you guys do not know who Anna Huang is, she is the amazing author of the Twisted series. I've read the whole Twisted series. I really like them. So this one is between Dante and Vivian. You see them actually in Twisted Lies for a little bit. I believe that Dante is a business associate of Christian Harper, and Christian is actually in this book. Vivian is the daughter of a rich family. They actually grew up poor, and then the dad's business, his jewelry business, took off, and they ended up switching their entire lives with their new money. And so they're still trying to cling on to society and make sure that they're keeping up with appearances. The dad of Vivian especially is just very much a social climber, and he's kind of lost touch with what's important to him. Vivian really struggles with that, but she is an event planner. She's very rich in her own right. Her family has announced to her that they found an arranged marriage for her. She knew it was coming, but she was only 28, so she was like, I thought I'd have until I was 30. They set her up with Dante, who is old money Italian. So she's very confused as to why he's even agreeing with this, because obviously her family has a lot to gain from this arrangement, but he really doesn't. Vivian and Dante end up having to live with each other in forced proximity. It was a very cool setting. It was opulence to the max. Like when he gives her the engagement ring, he also gives her a black Amex card. Girl, like they're getting married on Lake Cuomo money. The thing that did kind of fall flat for me was the romance. There was one scene that I loved in this book so much, and it was when they both got up in the middle of the night because they were hungry, and they ended up sharing with each other their weird food cravings. I loved that moment so much. It was probably my favorite in the entire book. Those moments were far and few in between. I felt like the rest of it was very volatile. It was very lusty. It wasn't very organic. So I wish there were just more moments like that. All in all, not a terrible book. I gave it 3 stars because it was okay. I will be continuing this series. This book, however, was just kind of like just okay. The next book I read was Hooked. This is the first book in the Never After series by Emily McIntire. Guys, I was so hooked. Oh my god, I hate myself. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I did not expect to be so enthralled in this book. It is a dark romance fairy tale retelling. So if you're not into dark romance, definitely avoid this book. It wasn't super dark, but there's definitely some things in here that are like not acceptable. It's basically a retelling of Peter Pan. The anti-hero is James, who is Captain Hook. He owns a bar, and in walks in Wendy, who is Peter Pan's daughter. James hates Peter. James blames him for his horrible childhood and the death of his family. James thinks it's a great idea to use his daughter Wendy as leverage. Wendy has no idea about this. She just is entranced by Hook. I thought this was so entertaining. I actually just bought the second book in the series, which is Scarred, right here. I'm actually super excited to read it. The universe as a whole is what's compelling me, not necessarily romance aspect of it, but I'm definitely going to continue. So 3.5 stars for this one. The next book that I read was The Bodyguard by Katherine. I love covers like this, very rom-com-y. Like, I just thought it was going to be an easy, fun read, and I was right. Ended up giving this 3.5 stars. Hannah Brooks is a bodyguard. She ended up just being dumped by her boyfriend. He was actually cheating on her with her best friend. Her boss is like, I actually need you to do something here in Texas, which is guard Jack. Jack is a very famous celebrity. He's an actor. He hasn't been in any movies in a couple of years because of a tragedy that occurred with his brother. Jack's mother ends up having breast cancer, and so he needs to come home, but he also has a stalker in the area. He doesn't want to worry his family by telling them, so he hires Hannah to be his fake girlfriend. It's just very cute and wholesome. The setting was awesome. It wasn't anything spectacular, so I gave it 3.5 stars. The next one that I read was Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, and I cannot believe it took me this long to read this book. It is basically a very popular book talk book between an ice skater and a hockey player. Anastasia and Nate are actually forced to share an ice hockey rink due to the fact that the regular ice hockey team's rink was tarnished, so they're forced to basically be within proximity to each other. They were very much not into commitment at the beginning of the book. They really weren't looking for anything, and they end up bantering more than anything. I want to say they're enemies to lovers, but I believe enemies to lovers should only be reserved for when actual killing is involved. Basically, they were like dislike to lovers. I gave this book 3.75 stars, which was disappointing to me considering it was so hyped up on Book Talk. Normally, like I said before, I love slow burn. I love when a couple has so much tension before the relationship starts. Eat that shit up. This couple, I did not like the before of their relationship. I didn't like the tension, but what saved this book was once they got together, oh my God, they were the cutest. I have never read such good communication between a book couple before in my life. Nate and Anastasia talked everything out. Both these characters wanted to make it work and were open to communicating with each other. I think that their relationship was downright stinking cute. So adorable, the way that they took care of each other, the way they loved each other. And so the relationship part of the book was so good to me. The beginning is what really kind of brought it down for me. So 3.75 stars for this one. The next book I read was The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. Now, this is a standalone book. However, what I would recommend if you are going to read this book is make sure that you read The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, due to the fact that plot is heavily related to The Soulmate Equation, and the two main characters from The Soulmate Equation are heavily involved in this book. Now, this book is between Fizzy Chen and Connor Prince. Fizzy is basically a romance author. I loved this so much because, of course, like I said before, I love when the main characters are so into books. And so a lot of the plot is actually based on the fact that she is downgraded and ignored because of the fact that she's a romance author. She's 37 years old. Her career as a romance author is very successful, but she kind of has a writer's block because she is known for dating and having the best like love life and like, you know, doing all these crazy things, meeting so many crazy people. She doesn't have a type, but she's never been in love. And she kind of has an epiphany or a panic attack, whatever you want to call it. Alternately, Connor Prince is actually a divorced single dad. He is very much still best friends with his ex-wife Nat, and they have a daughter together named Stevie, and he's very involved in her life. He is a producer. He's kind of forced by his boss to create a reality dating show. His ex-wife actually loves Fizzy's books, and so that's how he learns about her, and he wants her as the main role. I thought this book was a cute concept. concept. I watched The Bachelorette, so I think it was a really good setting. However, there was a factor of this book is just like a hard no for me. Don't want to say what it is because it is a spoiler. I think you would know what I mean if you've read this book. All in all, I think that the ending of this book was way better than the beginning. I think that the way that they got together, the way they expressed their feelings was very cute. So I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I know I didn't finish this book yet, but I really want to talk about this because I think this is going to end up being either a 4.5 star read or a 5-star read. Now, if you guys don't know what this is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This is the first book in the series. It happened one summer. This is the second book. So the first book, I loved this book. I gave it 4 stars. It's between Grumpy Brendan, who's a fisherman, and Piper, this LA princess socialite who has no care in the world. And the two of them meet when she's exiled by her stepfather to Westport. Now, when she is exiled to Westport, her sister Hannah volunteers to come with them, and the second book is about Hannah. Hannah is so into music. That's how she communicates with people. Fox is also a fisherman. He is closely working with Brendan, who is the love interest from the first book. They end up actually striking up a very unlikely friendship. He ends up getting to know her and she's like not interested in him. She actually has a crush on her director slash co-worker, but Fox absolutely adores her. She goes back to LA at the end of the first book. They continue to text each other every day for like 7 months. Her crew is actually filming a movie in Westport that she suggests. I think that this book is written so well. I started this last night at 5 p.m. and read. I had a party going on and I was reading up in my room during the party. I ended up reading until like 2 in the morning because I was so invested in this. It just feels like the two of them are constantly teetering on the edge of their feelings and confessing to each other. I'm so happy that I picked this up. If you guys haven't read the series, it's the perfect summer series. It's called It Happened One Summer. I'm actually going to post a reading vlog on my other channel with this in it. I highly recommend that you guys go ahead and give these books a read. Alright guys, so that was the end of my July reading wrap up. Really good reading month for me. I hope that you guys, this video, if you have any recommendations for the month of August, I'm not somebody who plans out my TBR. I kind of just pick up whatever I want. So if you have any specific recommendations, please let me know. If you guys have read any of these books recently, let me know what you thought as well. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.